Painter himself never used the terms repetitive consumption or planned obsolescence, but the implications of his advice are unmistakable. "Think of something like the Crown Cork," he told Gillette one evening in the extravagant parlor of his opulent Baltimore mansion. "Once it is used and thrown away, the customer keeps coming back for more." The tale of how King Gillette invented his disposable razor blade reached legendary status in early 20th century America, much as the story of Microsoft's founding or the origin of Apple computers is widely known today. By the time Sinclair Lewis's Babbitt was published in 1922, most Americans knew that while King Gillette was shaving with a Star safety razor in Pennsylvania one morning in 1895, he realized that his blunt steel blade needed to be professionally resharpened. "I found my razor dull. And not only was it dull, but it was beyond the point of successful stropping, and it needed honing, for which it must be taken to a barber or a cutler. As I stood there with the razor in my hand, my eyes resting on it as lightly as a bird settling down on its nest, the Gillette razor was born." As King thought about the high maintenance required of Star blades, not to mention their high cost, up to $1.50 apiece, a significant amount of money in the 1890s, he must have wondered, what if a cheaper, thinner blade could be stamped out of sheet metal and then honed on two edges? When both sides became dull, the customer can simply replace it with a new one. That very day, Gillette wrote to his wife, Alanta, "Our fortune is made." And he was almost right. Another 6 years would pass before a process could be developed that would interleave sheet steel and copper in order to allow thin metal sheets to temper without buckling. Only thin metal, so tempered, could hold the razor-sharp edge needed for Gillette's disposable blades. By 1905, using the slogan, "No stropping, no honing," Gillette's safety razor had won public acceptance and began its steep trajectory of growth. Like paper shirt parts and Ingersoll watches before it, this disposable product targeted men. It also circumvented accusations of unthrifty wastefulness because it was convenient and hygienic, elements of the story that Sinclair Lewis later chose to satirize in 1922. One morning, Lewis wrote, George F. Babbitt was confronted with a disposable razor blade just as dull as Gillette's Star blade in 1895. He hunted through the medicine chest for a packet of new razor blades, reflecting, as invariably, "Be cheaper to buy one of those dinguses and strop your own blades." And when he discovered the packet, behind the round box of bicarbonate of soda, he thought ill of his wife for putting it there, and very well of himself for not saying, "Damn." But he did say it, immediately afterward, when with wet and soap-slippery fingers he tried to remove the horrible little envelope and crisp, clinging oiled paper from the new blade. Then there was the problem of what to do with the old blade, which might imperil the fingers of his young. As usual, he tossed it on top of the medicine cabinet, with a mental note that someday he must remove the 50 or 60 other blades that were, temporarily, piled up there. In addition to revolutions in paper and steel production that made male-oriented disposable products possible, a little-known but equally revolutionary process in rubber manufacture in the middle of the 19th century demonstrates the early connections among disposability, repetitive consumption, hygiene, and health. Long before Sarah Chase and Margaret Sanger began their enlightened distribution of birth control devices to women in defiance of the repressive Comstock laws, the development of vulcanization in the 1850s made possible the manufacture of a heavy style of condom from rubber. Vulcanized rubber condoms were not very elastic, however, and so they were fastened in place by two attached ribbons. Gradually, as these contraceptive devices gained popularity, they came to be known as rubbers. Rubbers were distinct from another kind of condom called a skin, which was made from sheep intestine. Because skins were more difficult to manufacture, they were, and remain today, much more expensive than rubber condoms.